Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, November 15th. There's about 450 albums coming out this week. I got 14 on my list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, there's about 450 albums coming out this week. I'm only going to talk about 14 on the show though today, so if it's something I don't talk about, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing. And like always, if you're unable to find these in your local brick and mortar stores, they should all be available online. I'll put links down below in the comment section. You can always also go over to the Vinyl Den store on Amazon. There's pre-orders on there. There's new releases on there. Vinyl accessories, all sorts of cool stuff to check out. I think the big release this week for me is going to be this new album from Linkin Park. This is From Zero. It's their 8th studio album. It's going to run you about $26 online. Multiple different variants going to be available of this one. The indie exclusive version is going to be on translucent magenta vinyl. Of course, it's the band's first album with Emily Armstrong replacing Chester Bennington on vocals. Of course, Chester died back in 2017. This is something I thought we'd never see. After Chester's death, I thought that was going to be the end of the band. And then the first couple of songs I've heard off this album actually are pretty good. I think it's something I'm definitely looking forward to checking out this week. The name of the album, From Zero, is kind of a reference to two different things. The original name for Linkin Park was Zero, spelled with an X. Plus, From Zero, this is like the beginning of this new era for the band. So like I said, it's cool and I'll definitely check out. I think this is the band's shortest album though. It's only like 32 minutes long. There's 11 tracks on here. Like I said, it's one I haven't pre-ordered it. I probably will grab a copy of it though, but I'll stream it first and check it out. And then you got the new album from John Batiste coming out this week. This is Beethoven Blues. It's his 8th studio album. It's also going to run about $26 online. John's 5-time Grammy Award winner. I loved a lot of the other stuff he's done throughout his career. This is the first release in the Batiste piano series that he's releasing. So what he's doing on this album is he's reimagining some great pieces from Beethoven, which Beethoven was one of John's earliest influences. And if you're a classical music fan, it's definitely worth checking out. I've listened to 2 tracks off of it already. But go into it knowing that, everyone knows these songs that he's playing on here, but he's definitely putting his own flair on there. He's definitely making those compositions his own. There are some original compositions on the album also. It's one I'll definitely stream and check out the full album this week. So last year, Black Sabbath announced that they were going to release the Tony Martin era albums all in a box set. And everyone was super excited about it. I was really excited. Those were albums I've always wanted on vinyl. A lot of them had been out of print for years and years. So the box set came out, and now we're getting reissues of all of those albums individually, which is that's kind of the thing I always hate. Yes, these albums are affordable. They're all like $25. But, if you're going to release the box set, at least wait a year or more until you release albums individually, especially since collectively, I think you still get that box set for like $100, and you're going to pay about $100 for all these albums individually. But it looks like there's black versions and clear versions of all these are going to be available. First album is Headless Cross, released 1989. It was their 14th studio album. This is the band's second album with Tony Martin on vocals after The Eternal Idol. And while they're releasing all these Tony Martin albums, I don't understand why they didn't include, at least if you're going to do these albums outside the box set, do a reissue of The Eternal Idol also, because it's an album that is really hard to find on vinyl, even though I know it has been reissued. But the Headless Cross is an album where I hadn't really listened to a lot of that album until I got the box set. And it's become probably my favorite non-Ozzy or Dio album from Black Sabbath. And I think the song Headless Cross is definitely, in my opinion, the best song on this album. If you're unfamiliar with the album, it's definitely worth checking out. Then you've also got Tear coming out, which is their 15th studio album. It was released in 1990. $24 it's going to run you. This is the third album in the Tony Martin series. And it's an album that was met with a lot of really mixed reviews. This is definitely, so the album is kind of based off of the whole Norse mythology, and it's not as dark as albums previously released by Black Sabbath. And I think that kind of caught some fans off guard. It was met with a lot of really mixed reviews, but I think looking back on the Tony Martin era, in my opinion, it's one of the classic albums from that period. There's also a reissue of Cross Purposes coming out this week. This was released in 1994. It was their 17th studio album. So this is the fourth album in the Tony Martin era. But this is the album that came out after Dehumanizer. So Dehumanizer came out in 1992. That was the album where Dio returned to Black Sabbath. And after that album, he left for good. So Tony Martin comes back in, they record this album. But by 1994, rock music had really changed. You know, the whole rock scene was different. And I think Black Sabbath was trying to find how they fit into the rock scene. And this is definitely more of a modern sounding rock album, a lot more than what they had done before. Actually, there's a uncredited appearance on the song Evil Eye by Eddie Van Halen on here also. I don't know if a lot of people knew that one, but it's one that took me a long time to kind of warm up to. I've listened to it multiple times since the box set has come out, and this is probably the first time I've listened to that album in probably, over 25 years. And, it's one that if you take the four albums from this box set, I think it's definitely the weakest of the four albums, but it's kind of grown on me since I started listening to it. And then you got Forbidden also getting reissued. This came out in 1995. It's their 18th studio album. So this is the fifth and final album with Tony Martin on vocals. Actually, it was the last album that Black Sabbath would release for almost 20 years until they would release 13 once Ozzy Osbourne came back into the band. But my big issue with this album is it was produced by Ernie C. of Body Count, and it has a very different sound to it, and I've never liked this album. And I know that Tony Iommi was never a fan of the way this album was mixed. So this new 2024 remix is done by Tony Iommi himself, and it breathes all new life in this album. It sounds like a completely different album than what I listened to, almost 30 years ago. A couple really interesting jazz albums coming out this week. The first one was Blue Mitchell, Blues Moods, released back in 1960. This is part of the Kraft Recordings, the original jazz classic series. It's going to run you about $39 online. These are all mastered by Kevin Gray from the original analog tapes. They're pressed at RTI. They always sound fantastic. So as jazz music has gotten more popular over the last several years, I feel like this album has kind of flown under the radar. I know $39 is a lot to drop on a single album, but if I can grab it for a couple bucks cheaper, maybe I'll get a copy of it this week. He's joined by a great cast on here, though. He's got Wynton Kelly, Sam Jones, Roy Brooks is on there also. Fantastic jazz album. If you're getting into jazz music and you haven't heard that one, it's at least worth streaming and checking out. And then you got Dexter Gordon Getting Around also coming out this week. Came out back in 1966. This is part of the Blue Note Classic series. So the classic series, it's a little bit different than the Toe Poet series and even the original Jazz Classic series, which those two series, they come in a little bit nicer of a jacket, but they also run about $10 more. You can get this Getting Around for about $28. So Getting Around was released 4 years after he released Go, which I think Go is widely seen as one of the greatest jazz albums of all time. Prior to releasing Getting Around, though, Dexter had spent the last couple of years in Europe, so he came back to the States to record this final album with Blue Note. And, while it's not as good as Go, it's definitely one worth checking out also if you're getting into jazz. He's got Bobby Hutcherson on here, Barry Harris, Bob Cranshaw, the great Billy Higgins on drums also. There's also the new EP from ska punk legends Less Than Jake coming out this week. It's going to run you about $23 online. There's multiple versions or multiple variants going to be available of this one. The indie exclusive version is going to be on yellow, blue, and white tricolor vinyl. This is the first new music from Less Than Jake since they released Silver Linings back in 2020, which I thought was definitely a return to form album for the band. I wasn't a huge fan of their last couple of albums that came out before that. I was really impressed with that one. This is a 7-song EP. I'm expecting there to be the similar quality than what they did on Silver Linings. So, I probably will grab a copy of that one this week. Then you got the new album from Gwen Stefani coming out. This is Bouquet. This is her 5th solo studio album. It's going to run about $33 online. It's on Champagne vinyl. This is Gwen's first new music since she released You Make It Feel Like Christmas back in 2017. And this album is marking a return to this more pop rock sound that she's had done for a large section of her solo career. After dabbling in some country music over the last couple of years, of course, she's married to Blake Shelton, so there's always going to be that tie. Actually, he does make an appearance on this album also. The very last track on the album is Purple Irises, which is a duet with Blake. I was pretty impressed with actually the first couple of singles off this album. Somebody Else's was the first single, and then I don't remember the name of the second one was, but I listened to all three of them last night. And I like what I heard. Obviously, I don't think this is as good as her earlier solo stuff, but I think she's definitely going on the right track with this album. There's a couple of anniversary deluxe editions that are coming out this week. The first one is George Harrison, Living in the Material World. This came out back in 1973. It was his fourth studio album. It's a 50th anniversary release. I know the 50th anniversary was last year, but it's coming out this year. There's a couple different versions going to be available of this one. The deluxe edition is going to run you about $65. There's also a 1 LP version on clear. I think there's a clear version and a version on black vinyl. Those are going to run you about $40. This was the follow-up to the hugely successful album, All Things Must Pass, which I think was always going to be a difficult album for him to follow up. But he did a really good job with this one. Actually, this is an album I hadn't listened to in a very long time. I actually just listened to this probably about a month, maybe 2 months ago. And it's probably the first time I'd listened to it in over 20 years. It ended up being his second straight #1 album on the Billboard 200. Actually, I think this was his last #1 album on the Billboard 200. So what you're getting in this deluxe edition has a second LP of outtakes, does come with a 12-page booklet. There's a poster included in there also. If I grab a copy, it'll probably just be the 1 LP version, because I don't know if I'm ever really going to listen to a lot of those outtakes on there. I like live material. If there's live material in a deluxe edition, I'll definitely lean towards that. But, just outtake stuff. I realized that over the last couple of years when I buy these deluxe editions, I really only listen to the outtakes maybe once or twice. And then, so I guess at that rate, I'm just better off streaming those outtakes rather than having them on vinyl. But you got that coming out this week. Then you got Don Henley Building the Perfect Beast. Came out back in 1984. It was his second solo studio album. 2 LP 40th anniversary release. It's going to run about $33 online. This might be a hot take, but I think this is probably, at least off the top of my head, I think this is the best solo album from any member of the Eagles. And it's one that I've loved for a really long time. This is the album that has The Boys of Summer on there. All She Wants to Do Is Dance is on there also. This is all newly remastered from the original analog tapes. So when this album was first released back in 1984, the song A Month of Sundays was cut from the original album just because it couldn't fit on the LP. So this new 2 LP release has that song restored on there, so you're finally getting the full track listing of what the album should have been. Another anniversary release that's coming out this week is Iron Maiden Powerslave, released back in 1984. It was their 5th studio album. It's going to run you about $37 online. This is a 40th anniversary Zoetrope picture disc, which these things always look kind of cool, but my big question is always, the sound quality of them. I'll read reviews when this one comes out to see what it sounds like, but, they list this as limited edition, but they don't really say how limited this is. I don't really know if this really is limited or if it's just like a marketing ploy to try to sell more copies. But, this is a classic Iron Maiden album. When, I think it's kind of widely seen as one of the best metal albums of the 80s. I know when Rolling Stone magazine did their list of the 100 greatest metal albums of all time, I think this was number 38 on the list. So, it's kind of one to keep your eye out on this week. It hit I think it was number 21 on the Billboard 200, sold over 1 million copies here in the U.S. So you got that coming out, and then you get the last one on my list is Thelonious Monk's Music, released back in 1957. It's going to be about $39 online. There's another one that's part of the Craft Recordings Original Jazz Classic Series. Mastered by Kevin Gray, pressed to RTI. They always sound fantastic. This is, in my opinion, one of the greatest jazz albums of all time. It's at least one of the most influential jazz albums of the 50s. And one that, I know this is going to sound great, but I've got the Vinyl Me Please version of it, which is one of the best sounding albums in my collection. So I'll probably just stick with that one. But what's really important about this album is this is the mono mix of this album. When this album was recorded, it was recorded in mono and stereo. But when they recorded the stereo, the mics they used to record that were actually further away from the instrument, so it didn't sound nearly as good as the mono version. So if you're ever looking at getting a copy of this and you see the stereo version, stay away from that one. The mono version is definitely the one to go with this one. But he's joined by basically like a who's who of jazz music from the 50s. You got John Coltrane on here. You got Coleman Hawkins, Ray Copeland, Art Blakey. Art Blakey does an incredible job on drums on this album. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. This week, I don't have anything on pre-order, but I'll probably grab that Linkin Park album. I'll stream the John Batiste album. We'll see if I end up grabbing a copy of that. I'll probably grab that Less Than Jake. Let me know what you guys are looking forward to grabbing. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep all spinning. Peace.